Hello, classmates and theater people. Welcome to my second presentation. Let's talk about some theory, shall we? So the play I picked is called Tribes by a playwright named Nina Rain. And just to give you a little background about the play before I dive into the three theories more in depth, the play is about a family. The main character, his name Billy, and he is a deaf person. He was born deaf, and he does not know how to sign, and neither does anyone in his family. Um, so, and he meets a woman who's losing her hearing, who's totally fluent in sign language, because both of her parents were born deaf. So it kind of explores the family relationship to his disability and his experiences as a deaf person. My dog's trotting along, sorry for the noise. So the three theories that I'm going to look into are disability studies. That's the one that's not on the syllabus that I'm looking into. Obviously, this play fits that. And then also semiotics and post-colonialism. So to start off, disability studies. I have some texts from Professor Siba that most of you probably didn't read, so I'm going to read this quote. Disability theater is one branch of a wider international disability arts and culture movement which seeks to address and redress the very idea of disability in the modern arts and, by extension, society. Undermining stereotypes and stigma on the one hand, and pressing the boundaries of aesthetic convention on the other, disability theater is thus both activist and artistic in orientation. So I relate this to this family dynamic, obviously. So on this first disability slide here, I have a section of the text. Billy is struggling to speak because the batteries in his hearing aids are dying, and it's very hard for people to speak when they cannot hear themselves. And his father, Christopher, says his battery's going. His brother says, she reminded you of someone? And he struggles again. I thought and his mother says, Billy, consonants. And, to me, this moment stood out because instead of having a way to circumvent this sort of miscommunication through sign language, they're just like, hey, use your consonants. Like, he can't hear. It's not his fault. And instead of them taking the initiative, they're putting it all on him. So, on the next slide, I have a quote here. Our society tends to value people on their perceived ability to produce things rather than their talent in producing meaningfulness in the lives of others. And so one of the plot points in this play is that Billy gets a job. Billy gets a job reading lips for court proceedings. And I have this excerpt here where, he describes to his family, oh, Sylvia says I could get a job because I'm really good at lip reading. And his sister Ruth says, but Billy's never had a job. So, I relate this section to this quote because, our value is perceived in whether or not we can produce things, and he's always been viewed as someone who can't produce anything. He's never had a job. He can't function. He can't contribute anything. So moving on to semiotics. Just to review, semiotics, according to Fortier, is the study of signs, those objects by which humans communicate meaning. Words, images, behavior, arrangements of many kinds in which a meaning or idea is relayed by a corresponding manifestation we can perceive. So, personally, I thought of this plan as like, obviously, semiotics. I mean, sign language is literally signs, so meaning doesn't just come from words. Meaning can be translated in a whole bunch of different ways. Body language, sign language, etc., etc. And on this slide I put two quotes from the play. So this is spoken by the father character. He says, bollocks, we don't know what feelings are until we put them into words. And it's just not true. There are words in certain languages that don't have a translation in other languages. And they also actually talk about semiotics and, oh no, buttons. I'm trying to record myself. Say hi to my class. No, go away. So, get your tail out of here. Excuse me. So, what was I saying? You know, we have meaning. Language itself is not. This is a mess. Language itself does not have an inherent meaning, which relates to the constitutive theory of language or the transparent theory of language, and which you can look up on your own because we didn't talk about that in this class, and I don't have time. And there's an incident in the play where the brother character is kind of upset. He's bickering with the sister, and Billy says he's upset before anybody realizes he's upset. And, you know, it contradicts the fact that we don't know what feelings are until we put them into words, because Billy can't hear, and yet he was the first one to notice that his brother was upset, because everybody else was like, how do we know? He didn't say it. But you don't really need to say it. And they also, and as I said, they talk about some of these theories in the play, which I read this play a few years ago, back when I was at Adelphi, and I didn't think that it would be so spot on. I was like, oh, you know, I could use that to relate it to semiotics, because sign language. And within like the first few pages, one of the characters, like, he's full of that post-colonial horse, bad word, and so I was like, wow, this is really spot on. Good. So the second quote here, there are two actually that I put on the same line. Language is radically indeterminate. Ultimately, language is worthless. The brother character, Daniel, is writing a thesis on language. So, yeah. Moving on to the next slide. This quote here from the Chandler reading. Beyond the most basic definition as the study of signs, there is considerable variation among leading semioticians as to what semiotics involves. One of the broadest definitions is that of Umberto Eco, who states that semiotics is concerned with everything that can be taken as a sign. So again, this goes back to sign language. Semiotics isn't just about words. So from the play, I have this here. Christopher, I thought it was basically broken English, referring to sign language and how it's grammatically structured. And then Billy signs to Sylvia, the hard of hearing, the woman losing her hearing, and tells her broken English is what his brother or his father has just said. And Sylvia says, no, it's got its own grammatical rules. So again, you know, meaning is culturally described. So let's move on to post-colonialism. I have this quote here from Baba. Two attitudes towards external reality persist. One takes reality into consideration, while the other disavows it and replaces it by a product of desire that repeats, rearticulates reality as mimicry. So to me, mimicry stands out in this play because Billy, the whole time, is trying to pretend to be something he's not. He is not hearing. He has never heard anything. He was born deaf, and yet he's not allowed to learn how to speak sign language by his family for a while. He, you know, does that on his own. They don't bother to teach him. They teach him how to speak just on their own, and the mom prides herself on that, but, you know, it's not based in anything that would be beneficial for him. And, you know, he just kind of has to function as if he's an able-bodied person, and he's not. So I have this passage here. I'm not talking about Billy. Billy's not deaf. Billy is deaf. He's not. He's been brought up in a hearing family. He's been protected from all that shit. I'm talking about the hardliners, the capital D deaf, the people who call us autists. So even the father doesn't consider his son deaf, but he definitely is. And another quote from this character, when he's talking about Sylvia and the deaf community, he says, the deaf, the fucking Muslims of the handicapped world. You feel like saying, take your hearing aids and shove them up your arse. The feeling of persecution is necessary because, so they talk about persecution in this section of the text, and it relates to post-colonialism. You know, there's a dominant group of non-disabled people versus, you know, a minority group of disabled people who are consistently oppressed. And, you know, even if you just look at the accessibility of buildings or how many YouTube videos have captions, you know, so it's all around. And then I have, to support that, I have this quote from the Fortier that we all loved on the discussion forum. Like feminism, post-colonialism aims to give voice to an oppressed group by understanding and critiquing the structures of oppression and articulating and encouraging liberation and revolution. In this case, the group consists of those who have lived under the imperialist domination of Western colonial powers. So, that's about all I've got for you guys. Conclusions. Disability theory, disability theory, semiotics, post-colonialism. I didn't expect post-colonialism to be so relevant, but rereading this play, I was like, wow, this is perfect. So, yeah, I encourage you guys to read this play if it sounds interesting to you. I really suggest it. I think it's a great piece, and I hope you are all staying safe. Have a good evening.